So around this time, when Vision Sunday comes, there's some comments that are made, possibly unfair, but maybe true, that I get a bit too excited at this time of the year. Edwina's already made one of the jokes that I can speak too long on Vision Sunday. And even apparently I speak faster on Vision Sunday because I know that I've got a lot to say, and I try and speak faster so that I can squeeze it in without going too long. I don't know if that's entirely true, but I was given some very clear advice as I was preparing this. Don't try and talk about everything. There is lots to talk about, and I really would love to go for a long time. But I was given the advice, try and focus on what really matters. Which is actually not a bad piece of advice, and fits in with what I'm talking about today. Because this Vision Sunday really comes down to one question that I would like to put out there. How do we move from words to a lived experience? How did we move from words to a lived experience? Last year, our church took part in a really once in a decade or once in a couple of decades mission planning process. Like, we put everything on the table last year, and over 12 months and around 150 people were involved in more than 30 significant conversations. We had small groups, we had large groups, we had some surveys, we had some dessert nights, we had time of prayerful reflection. It was a big deal last year. We talked honestly about what was working here at the church, where we were growing spiritually, where we saw opportunities or issues, where some parts of our ministry and mission might need some reimagining or renewal. And yes, there was a lot of words last year, a lot of words, and questions and ideas and hopes and concerns and prayers and reflections. We produced a lot of documents last year. This is only a few of them. You just got to go onto our website and you'll see how much stuff we produced last year. But I want to say that those words were not wasted. That time was not wasted. Throughout that whole process, it genuinely felt like God's hand was upon us. And what emerged was not just a set of ideas, but a shared voice as we came together and had a sense of who we are, what we value, and what God might be inviting us to be as we look forward, not just in the next year or two, but right in and through the 2030s. During our Growing Generosity program at the end of last year, which if you haven't read this one, this is also up the back, more of the documentation that we produced. But not only did we produce that one, we produced this one, which is a document that captured something really important about us. It covers our purpose, our values, our passions, and our goals. I think if you read it last year, it had a different heading on the top, so you might go, I don't recognise that. It is the same document. I've just changed the heading because it said Growing Generosity all over it. And so, if you haven't read this, it is worth reading. This is really worth reading. If you have read it, I encourage you to read it again. And you either can do it on a piece of paper or just scan the QR code up on the screen right now and it pops up on your phone and you can read it right now. It is an inspiring and exciting document. It's got lots of stuff in there. For example, just listen to our purpose. Turramurra Uniting Church is a vibrant, Christ-centred, inclusive community growing in faith, connection and service. I was told I'm not allowed to read everything out, so I have to stop. You literally have it in front of you in that other flyer that I gave you this morning, the brochure there, it's just there. So I'll stop reading, but it's good. This stuff is, as I said, came out of a shared voice, a shared conversation, and the work that we did last year was not wasted. These are great words. But I guess this is the key point for today. those words only matter if we turn them, if they become our lived experience, if they're turned into action. Before I talk more concretely about what 2026 might look like for this year, I want to pause and just place this idea that I'm proposing this morning, turning words into a lived experience, into sort of like a biblical framework. A few weeks ago, we started the Gospel of John, looking and working through it, and I said there is a key verse that explains everything in John. Edwina, can you remember what it is? John chapter 20, verse 31, where John wrote, "These words were written so that you may believe, and by believing you might have life in Jesus' name." John wrote these words so that we might believe. For John, his intentions were clear. These words are important, but these words should lead to action. These words should help us believe, and these words should bring us life. They're not just words, they're words that become something that we live, that transforms us. It's not only John's approach, it's Jesus' approach as well. It's how Jesus did ministry as well, which we can see this dynamic playing out in the Bible reading that Alison read out for us today. The royal official comes to Jesus and says he's desperate for his son who is dying 30 kilometres away, for Jesus to come and to heal him. Jesus responds with that confronting line, "Unless you people see signs and wonders, you will never believe." What do you think Jesus is trying to say at this point? Is Jesus being critical of the official, saying, what are you asking me? Why are you doing this? Or is he just stating a fact? The fact that at that point, there was a lot of rumours going around about Jesus. There was a lot of people saying, have you heard that Jesus did this? Have you heard that Jesus has done that? Have you heard Jesus teaching about this? Have you heard about the miracle that Jesus did here? There was a lot of words and talk and rumours going around about Jesus. And people were turning up to find out if these things were true. But they were struggling just to believe the words. For them, they needed to see Jesus do this, see the miracles, hear the words themselves. So maybe Jesus is not being critical here of the official, but rather just stating the fact. I know, I understand. You people need more than words. You need to see this for you to believe. But here comes the twist. The official says, "Please come with me and heal my son." In response to the official's request, Jesus seemingly does nothing. Jesus doesn't go with him the 30 kilometres back to Capernaum to heal the son. He doesn't perform any visible action so that they will believe. He simply says, "Go, your son will live." They were looking for action, and all they got was words, more words. But these words were not empty. There was some power in these words that Jesus was saying. As they discovered later on, it was at the exact same moment that Jesus said these words that the son was healed. But this is the tension that we sort of sit with. We want to say that words without action are empty. And yet, well, at least in this story, the words themselves bring life. Words that are spoken in trust, words that are aligned with God's purposes, these words have power. So the words are not empty. It's a theme that keeps on coming up throughout John's Gospel, but also through Jesus' ministry. This tension between there's power in the words, but the words need to lead to some sort of action and result. I could step into the next chapter. We skip over John chapter 5 next week, so if you want to read John chapter 5 during the week, because we don't actually look at it next week, you can. But it's the story about a person with mobility issues who are sitting beside this pool that everybody thought would bring healing. But he's getting frustrated because there was nobody to actually pick him up and to carry and put him in the pool when the waters were stirred. And Jesus is talking to him, and the bloke says, I just need somebody to pick me up and carry me and put me in the pool. Does Jesus pick this man up, carry him and put him in the pool? No. He just gives him more words. He says, stand up, pick up your mat and walk. Of which he does. But it was the words somehow that brought the transformation again. Words did bring action. So I want to say that words are important. However, if for our church 2025 was a year of words, yeah, there was a lot of them, a year of words and listening and prayer and discernment, then 2026 is about, I did spend a little bit of time trying to work out the right word here. And the word that I've come up in is animation. Animation. To animate something means to bring it to life. If we believe that, we sort of believe that God is asking us in 2026 to animate our vision that we have discerned, to take these conversations that we have had and to use them to shape our worship, our community and our mission. We want to try and move from the words of 2025 to the lived experience of those words in 2026. A lot of things have emerged out of this mission planning process from last year. A lot of stuff. Too much stuff to try and tackle all at once. And so as a church, we decided to start with 5 priorities. Not to say that we're not going to be doing other stuff beyond these, but these are 5 priorities. Actually, I've thrown in a 6th, and you can see them in your brochure that I've given you. These priorities are not disconnected priorities, but rather they're just key spaces in which we want to move intentionally this year as a church from discernment to action. As I said, you'll find them outlined in your brochure, and I really wanted to read this all out to you, and I had much more to read out to you, but I'm heeding the advice and I'm not going to read all that out. It's in front of you. However, I am going to give you the headings and a little bit about what I think for each one. So these are great, and I'm going to walk you through them and sort of give you some insights about what we think this might mean in 2026. So the first one on that list is taking Evolve to the next level. Evolve is our evening worship congregation, Sunday evening, which has already been going through that process. Is a living example of what happens when faith and community and creativity come together. Our young adults have really taken the lead in driving that community forward. They've discussed what is most helpful, they've taken the lead, they've established community around shared meals, they've had honest conversations that have happened and are continuing to happen, and discipleship is being taken seriously. But now they feel like they want to take that to the next level. So in 2026, the focus for Evolve is not about reinvention, but strengthening what already gives Evolve life. Clearer pathways for belonging, better structures for leadership, and developing a clear message in the way that we communicate with the community, with the church, and with the wider church as well. The next one, the space that we are prioritising, is reimagining Friday night, or that sort of has broadened out into the whole understanding of what our children, youth and young adult continuum is. So we want to be intentional about how we nurture faith across all stages of life, but particularly from that idea of from playgroup through to our young adults. We want to create a pathway that helps develop and nurture faith. especially as the needs of young people continue to change. We're aware of we might need to do some exploring of new approaches that support connection and belonging and faith formation within that group. The next one, reimagining our 9 a.m. worship. This gathering, the 9 a.m. worship, is our main gathering, weekly gathering within Turramurra Uniting Church. It is a faithful and deeply valued worship community. In 2026, we're opening up a conversation and a season of gentle experimentation, asking how we can continue to be spiritually helpful and life-giving, but also pondering what does it mean for this worshipping community to be accessible for both those who call it home now, but also for those who may yet join us. Don't worry, we're not changing everything, but we're asking the questions of what would be most helpful. The next one, reimagining small groups and intentional faith conversations. Alongside our large gatherings, we're placing a renewed focus on smaller, intentional spaces where faith can be spoken honestly and supported relationally. These conversations already happen through our church, through Bible studies or shared meals or playgroup chats or activity groups or informal gatherings. And in 2026, we want to strengthen and resource, and in some cases, reimagine how to do those spaces so that talking about faith becomes more natural, more accessible, and more life-giving right across the breadth of our church community. The next one, building a sustainable future. That's about being faithful with the people and the time and the energy and the resources that God has entrusted to us. We want to be a church that is both wise and kind, not focused on busyness, just making people busier and busier, but on fruitfulness. In 2026, we'll be paying close attention to how our ministry time, our volunteer time, our leadership energy, our finances and our facilities are aligned with our vision so that we can grow in healthy ways and ensure our mission remains sustainable, not only for a few years, but for the next 20 years. And the last one, which I've sort of added in, but it encapsulates a lot of the conversations that were sitting around these top 5 priorities, which is strengthening our foundations. We'll also be attending to the underlying culture and practices that support everything that we do. This includes growing a clear what's next culture that helps people move from first connection to a deeper belonging, investing intentionally in leadership development and mentoring, improving how we communicate who we are, particularly to those who are new, and renewing our commitment to prayer. I could have added so much more in here. It's so hard to limit it down. I haven't even talked about stuff like our justice issues and all that sort of stuff. It's all there. I shouldn't ad-lib. We're still doing all of that, but these are our priorities. How's it sounding so far? Have I talked too much yet? Oh, no, I haven't. I timed this. This is shorter than normal. I know it's a lot of words, which is a little bit of an irony because today we're supposed to be moving from words to actions and I've just given you more words. But I want to say again, today is about moving from the words to the lived experience. And yeah, okay, I'll also admit that the initial part of 2026 is actually going to be more words because we're inviting you to have some conversations about these reimagining the 9 a.m. worship, reimagining the small groups. There's going to be some more words initially, but these words are not empty words. I want to say the words that we'll be having over the next 3 to 6 months, they've got potential and they've got power. Our experience last year showed us that when we get the right people in the right conversations, these conversations become practical, energising and action orientated. They lead to real experiments, real learning and real change. Some of the stuff we talked about last year, we did not wait to implement. We said, this is great, let's do this now. And I'm assuming that will happen in these conversations that we are leading into in the next 3 to 6 months as well. So today, I'm giving you an invitation. We're inviting people who are already involved in, connected to, or passionate about some of these key areas that we've just shown on the screen to be part of the next round of conversations. You might see in this document that our time framework for 2026 has got the implementation for the taking evolved to the next level and the reimagining. That's already starting to happen. But in February to June, we're having these conversations for the 9 a.m. worship, small groups, plus those other 2 that were on the inside as well. And so I'm inviting you, do you want to be part of the conversation? We're inviting you to be part of it. Some of these conversations will be targeted because I want to, the Mission Council wants to speak to certain people who have got certain skills and experience in some areas that we want to have those sorts of conversations with them. But some of them will be very open because all voices matter. And so we want to give you the opportunity. And so you may have seen this as you came in, but if you didn't, this is sitting at the front door on the way out, or I've already seen people scanning the website to do it online. What you can do here is to say, yeah, I'd love to be part of the conversation about small group and faith conversations. Whenever that happens, I want to be a voice in that. Or you can say, actually, I want to be in a specific conversation about the traditional small group model. The other stuff about faith conversations, I'm happy for other people to talk about that. I just want to be more specific. So you can actually give us a little bit of direction. I want to say, I don't want to receive one of these with every box ticked. Because if you do that, you're like me and I've got FOMO and I don't want to not be in any conversation. That's not what this is about. This is about what is God stirring within you at the moment. Is there a passion for something? Are you already involved in something? Say, yes, I would love all the musos to be part of the muso conversation about 9 a.m. worship. That makes sense. But if you've also got some ideas and want to be part of that conversation, tick the box. You just don't need to tick all of them. If you want to have a say on absolutely everything, you and me can have coffee together and you can tell me all your ideas, I'll write them all down. But these conversations are with each other. Is that making sense at the moment? And this will happen over the next 3 months or so, and then we'll start to work out, well then, where is God leading us? How do we start to bring this to life? How do we start to animate the stuff that we talked about last year and bring it to a lived experience now? Let's wrap this up. I want to finish with one last Bible verse. Not from John chapter 4, which we did today, not from John chapter 5 that we're skipping over next week, but from John chapter 6. Which we're also skipping over, which is very disappointing because John chapter 6 is an excellent chapter and you should read that as well. John chapter 6, let me just catch you up. After 5 chapters in the Gospel of John, Jesus has incredible momentum. There is huge crowds following around, largely because of all the miracles and the teaching. People are coming from right around to hear and experience the life and the healing that Jesus is offered. And these crowds are huge. At the beginning of John chapter 6, there is the feeding of the 5,000. So we're talking about massive crowds now. But Jesus, towards the middle of chapter 6, starts to throw in some difficult teaching. Jesus becomes real about how following him is not always going to be easy, that there will be challenges, that that the cost of mission can be costly. And many of these new followers who are following Jesus began to express, this teaching is a bit hard. We're not sure about all of this now. And started to turn back. Jesus, seeing this, turns to the 12 and says, well, what about you? Are you going to leave too? Are you thinking this is too hard? Are you giving up? And Peter, on behalf of the 12, responds with these beautiful words. He says, Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. Peter honestly acknowledges that they don't have all the answers, and yes, this is hard to continue being part of this mission. But it's almost like they're past the point of no return now. They've seen too much, they've experienced too much, they can't turn away anymore. They've come to know that Jesus is indeed the Messiah, exactly what John's trying to get us to help to see. The disciples have worked it out by chapter 6. We know that you are the Messiah. So where else will we go? You've got the answers. Yes, this is hard, but where else are we going to go? They just rolled up their sleeves and continued to follow Jesus. We know that being a church in this era, as the world turns slowly crazy, is hard at the moment. It's hard doing mission in this context at the moment. But we also know that in Jesus we have found somebody who loves us, who helps us, and has the words to eternal life. So where else are we going to go? We've found the answer. Where else are we going to go? So I guess that's the point, isn't it? We also need to recommit, to roll up our sleeves and bring this mission of Jesus, the vision that God has for our community, from words to a lived experience. And in doing so, continue to experience and share the life that it brings. Amen.